Hey everybody, today I'm talking about La Isla, which is a design going back to 2014, designed by Stefan Feld and published by Ravensburger. This one accommodates 2 to 4 players, and it is definitely one of Stefan Feld's lighter games in terms of its rules complexity and overhead. And to be honest, my track history with Feld's lighter games isn't the best. And not because they're not great designs, but because I normally want, I prefer his more crunchy, heavily involved games with loads of kind of strategic options. But La Isla is one that I've heard good things about, and it is very simple to play and simple to explain. And it's going to take place on a board that looks like this. So it's a kind of a weird shape where all these different modules kind of snap together like that. And the idea is that we're trying to, I suppose with these explorers, trying to research these different rare animals. So you've got all these different animals depicted on these tokens here. You've got these frogs, these dodos, these moths. I don't know what the hell these little chipmunk things are. But yeah, it's going to take place on this board and you're going to get points by collecting them. So in terms of player pieces, everybody is going to be given one of these player boards here. You're going to get a starting animal, which is a larger token version, and you're going to get one of each resource. Now these resources correlate to the different spots on the board, like so. So for example, the green token corresponds to these areas on the board. And you're also going to get a number of explorers here, represented by these little plastic tokens. And you start with 5 of these, but you've got the potential to unlock more. And there's also a scoreboard here like this, which shows the value that each animal is going to be worth at the end of the game, and also shows how many points you've got throughout. So the flow of the game is pretty simple. In fact, it's very simple. All you're going to do is you're going to draw 3 cards from this huge stack of cards here. I've actually had to divide it in 2. And each player is going to draw 3, and then you are going to choose out of those 3 where you want to allocate each of these 3. So the cards depict 3 different types of information. You've got the power here, an ability that it gives you. You've got a resource cube that it's going to give you, and you've also got the animal that's going to move up the track if you put it in a certain spot. So let's say, for example, I put this one here. So, what I'll do first, is I'll put them all face down into these different slots as everybody's doing the same, and then everybody's going to reveal, and you are going to put them in their relevant or the appropriate spaces. So, for example, let's say I put this one in my slot A, which means I'm going to be using it as a permanent power or a power throughout the game. So from now on, whenever I take one of those wood-coloured cubes, I'm going to get 2 points. The second spot, I might do this one, so that means I've taken it as a resource, and I'll take another green cube from the supply and add it to my supply here. And the third one would be to, in spot D, I would be moving up the little chipmunk thing on this track here, like so. But before that D takes place, there's going to be a step C, and that step C is going to be how you're going to acquire the new animal tokens. And to do that, you're going to have to spend a number of resources. So say, for example, here, you're going to have to spend 2 resources to put it on that relevant space or a matching colour. So let's say I spent 2 of these green tokens. I could take one of my adventurers and I can put it on this spot here. And the idea is that you're trying to allocate more and more adventurers onto the board to surround these animals. So, for example, in here to capture this frog here, I need to put it in this spot and this spot here. And this 2 symbol represents how many areas you need to be in to collect it. So say I ended up putting a worker here. I'll take this one and put it into my supply. And the idea is that you're trying to collect sets of these animals, because if you get all 5 animals, you're going to get an additional 10 points for each set at the end of the game. But naturally, you're also trying to increase the value of the animals, of the most the most frequent animals you have in your collection. And that's going to be how a round's going to play out. But eventually, as the rounds go by again and again and again, you're going to start, adding up these abilities here, which can often really work well together. For example, whenever my brown cubes can now count as any cube, or whenever I place a worker in one of these spots on the kind of outer rim or the outer rim here, I'm going to get an additional 2 points, and so on. So you get more and more of these really great abilities. Whenever I get a moth, I get a cube of my choice. Whenever I put a worker onto this colour, I get 3 additional points. And the weird thing is that as soon as you get more than 3 of these objectives, you're going to have to start covering them up. So, for example, I might say, I've got I've got plenty of these resources now. So now I'm going to cover that one up and say, whenever I place a worker on the same spot as somebody else, I'm going to get 2 points. And I love this fact that you've got this limited engine here, that you can only ever have 3 powers at once, and eventually you're going to have to start sacrificing powers that are going to be good. So as soon as you get something good going, it's going to be taken away from you. I also like the fact that the way that the actual board is constructed, because you can really kind of make these almost kaleidoscopic and snake-like maneuvers in order to branch out and get other things. So, for example, here when I placed these 2 workers and got this animal, you can see I'm already in a good position to take this other frog here by just allocating here and here. And when I do that, I've got these 4 surrounded and take that one. And something I should have said as well is that whenever you take an animal, you get the points depicted on the tile here. So I would have got 2 points for this one, 4 points for this one. And now I've got these 2, this one surrounded, which again gets me that one for an additional 2 points. And that's going to be how the game's going to flow until eventually there is going to be, these tracks are going to go higher and higher and higher, making more animals worth different points. And as depending on the player count and depending on the total value of the animals, then the game is going to end immediately. For example, in a 2-player game, I think it ends as soon as there is a combined value of 7. So here it would be a combined of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But let's say it was up to there. It would be a combined value of 7, meaning that the game would be ended. Now, the thing that I really like about this as well is at the end of the game, every animal you've collected is going to be costed on or going to be giving you points depending on how high that animal is up on this track. So, if you really invest in a certain type of animal and try to push it right to the top, then you're going to, it's going to pay off. But at the same time, you're not going to get the rewards in terms of having the complete sets of 5, because again, you're going to get 10 points for each set that you have. So there is that kind of push and pull there. There's kind of contrasting mechanisms that pull you in different directions, which I like. And alternatively, if somebody is really going for a certain type of animal, you can try and take those animals away from them to try and stop them from capitalizing so much. But there's some really interesting decisions here, not only for the little engine you're building, but through your prioritization of the animals that you want to collect, what you're going to invest in and what you're going to improve the stock in. And I really like that. I love the way that the powers interact with each other. As I said, there's loads of different cards here, loads of different powers. You can't have 2 identical powers on your board, but that would really be an option anyway because of the pure variety of cards here, and so on. So I really do like the simple mechanisms and the way that little engine works without being paralyzing, because you can only ever have 3 things at once. And you know what? Generally, you want to start shifting your engine anyway, because you start achieving things quicker, and you want to branch into new areas and maybe get bonuses based on different colors and different animals. So yeah, it's pretty simple mechanically, as you can see. Just drawing your cards, allocating to the spots there, revealing them, putting them in their relevant spaces, and taking the actions. And that works really, really well. Balance-wise as well, as I said, you can choose to go one way in terms of collecting a certain type of animal, or really, trying to branch out and get one of each animal. You start with a pretty big, a big benefactor in terms of having a large tile which counts as 2 animals. So that starts as counting as 2 moths, for example, meaning that it might give you a good kind of starting point in terms of building up the points that the moths are going to be acquiring at the end of the game. Time investment, the game takes probably about 45 minutes to play, which I think is about right. Maybe towards the longer side of things I would like it to be. Maybe half an hour would have been better. But it's still fun throughout, and that you are engaged because of the engine that you're building. So no real complaint there. And in terms of the uptime, most of it you can play simultaneously. Allocating your cards you can play together, allocating your power you can play together, and even collecting your resources. The only phase that you have to play in player order is the turn C, when you are actually putting your workers onto the board, because you want to get there before other players do. And the rest of it can be played simultaneously. So that's really good, and there's no real downtime or anything like that. Replayability, it's a pretty simple set collection game, but of course there's variability in terms of the setup, with the tiles being in different orders. But the game, it's not going to really affect the gameplay, to be honest. You're always going to be going through the same motions. But as I said, for a fairly light game with some decent decisions in, I think it does hold up quite well in terms of replayability. Interaction, there is a moderate amount of interaction. I mean, not only for stealing the places or taking certain animals, because the board is going to get tighter and tighter in terms of what animals are left. And, you know, you're going to start fighting for the same animals. And additionally, you know, boosting other animals or certain types of animals is sometimes going to play into your opponent's hands when you might not want it to. Aesthetically, I think it looks okay. I would have liked the cards to be a bit clearer, at least in terms of the little player aids here. They're a bit small and a bit, you know, the print's very small and hard to concentrate on. But in terms of the components, I'm not overly happy with it. These little player boards aren't great. They're very flimsy. They're just a folded bit of paper, basically. The Adventurer little plastic tokens, they're fine. I mean, they didn't really have to go to the effort of making little adventurers, but it works absolutely fine. This scoreboard is terrible. It's literally just, again, another bit of paper, barely more than paper. But you know, the cubes are absolutely fine, just your standard Euro cubes. And the cards, you know, I think this is a game that more than warrants having smaller cards, because I think having it full size cards will be a bit of an overkill. So yeah, two minds about the components. You know, it looks okay, but the quality isn't great, to be honest. And the setup and teardown time, not too bad again. Just snap the boards together and put all the tokens on the different symbols, and you're pretty much good to go. Maybe a bit of shuffling in terms of the deck, and because there are so many cards, it's not the easiest thing to shuffle. But again, no real issue. Sense of progression, I think, has a great sense of moving forward. Not only because the animals become more valuable based on the current point value of them, but because for such a simple game, you do have a decent element of engine building, where you constantly have to weigh up what you want to keep and what you want to get rid of, and that kind of cost analysis is really interesting. And especially for a game this light, to have this decent element of engine building is fantastic. And the scalability, I think at all player counts it works fine. I think it's probably better at a 3-player count. That's 4 again, 3 or 4 I'd say is best. 2's maybe a little bit too open. But again, the complete or the end game trigger is going to vary based on the player count. So again, it's no real issue there. And comparison wise, there are quite a few set collection games, but I love the fact that this one, you know, the values change throughout, and it reminds me of Bumuntu, which was a game that came out last year in 2019, or 2 years ago now, I suppose, where, you know, the values of the animals are modified throughout the game. And I like that. I think that's just an extra wrinkle of a set collection game that I personally enjoy. Yeah, so overall, I think that this is actually one of my favourite Feld games that fall into that lighter category. I would put it higher than, say, this might be controversial, but like Castles of Tuscany, or maybe Notre Dame, Rialto, that kind of thing. I think I prefer this one a little bit more because it doesn't pretend to be something it's not. It is a simple set collection game, but that extra player board, just for me, is so compelling. And I just love that hard decision of, I love all these powers, but which one am I forced to cover up? And I really do like that. And that for me is what I take away from this game. It's just a really nice introductory game, and a great game to start maybe feeding that engine building element into a gamer's repertoire. So yeah, I can't complain there at all. So a real enjoyable for me, and a hit for me as well, and certainly one that's going to be sticking around, and I think I can have a lot of fun and get a lot more plays out of La Isla. It gets my my seal of quality sneaking in at about a 7 out of 10. So give this one a try if you've written it off. I really think it holds up well. I hope you enjoyed the review. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. And for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.